Get your paper, get your morning paper. It's a must, gotta have it. Check out the latest, get your morning headlines. Yeah, I know that was awful, but welcome to the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you stopping by first thing in the morning. This is going to be a staple of this channel each and every morning as we bring you the college football headlines. So, old timers, think back with me. It's the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, probably nowhere past 2005. Can I imagine that you were needing that morning paper? Sports nut, you got to have the morning paper, got to look at the headlines, got to look at the sports page as soon as possible. That's what we were going to provide you. We're going to check out the headlines together with you each and every day. So, of course, you had your paper of choice. We will have our paper of choice. We will start with the, of course, updated version online with ESPN. Let's go with ESPN first and foremost. And for those of you that joined us for Wake Up College Football, this is the new and improved version, the condensed version of Wake Up College Football, the ill-fated show that we did for 5 weeks this spring. Check it out because we had a whole lot of fun. Ill-fated, but it was fun. So sometimes shows get canceled, but they're a lot of fun. And that was one of them right now. We used to sit around for an hour and a half, 2 hours, but you didn't want to hear any more about my life and how to cook and what I wanted for breakfast. And we set it in the kitchen. We went that Good Morning America route, or at least what I think it used to be. That just didn't work out. You want your headlines, you want them quick, let's get them, let's go after it. Also, let's consider that if you're anything like me back in the day, if it was the middle of February, sure, I liked the NBA, I liked college basketball, but I wasn't going to spend so much time in the sports page as I was, let's say it was the first week of April, opening week of the baseball season. NBA playoffs are just about to start, so the regular season games are crucial. March Madness, we're at the end of the Final Four. Let's say it's Final Four weekend, and the Masters are going to start later that week. All sorts of stuff going on, and if you love the NHL. So there are going to be times that we are going to be out of hand all over the place with all sorts of college football news. Obviously, once August hits, you would think. So this is going to be headlines you need to see that we're going to hit. First and foremost, there's going to be a dry spell, and maybe we're starting in a dry spell, but hang with us. Headlines each and every morning with the Voice of College Football as we check out the headlines. What we also did with our Wake Up College Football show, and if you caught it, and if you really liked it, you liked it. That was the feel that I got. Some of you got hooked, loved it. I did as well. I would share little oddities from my life. We would talk about music. We talk about breakfast foods, cereals. We would rate and rank things. We would do that morning kind of talk around the water cooler kind of talk. That's what it is. Yes. So I'll share an oddity from the weekend. And no, I've never done this before. And hopefully I will never do it again. I will share one little tidbit from a dating situation from over the weekend. Okay, remove me out of the situation. I just found, as a connoisseur and nut of classic television from, let's say, the late 50s into the 80s, pretty much, classic TV is my thing. This individual I had a date with, she was once a girlfriend of one Christopher Knight. Yes, Peter Brady. Pork chops and applesauce. That Peter Brady actually showed me the pictures and the whole deal. And then another slew of celebrities that were probably mostly B-listers, but that I had a vague recollection of, maybe that you would be familiar with. So, we've all had brushes with celebs. I got to think that if you're at a certain age, at some point you've talked to a celebrity of some level. But down in the comment section, so we see those polls and those comment sections on Twitter, on Facebook all the time. You know, what celebs have you seen? Which ones have you talked to? Blah, blah, blah. But I'm going to go a step further. This is rarefied air. Maybe not. But let's say a dating situation. Maybe you married a celebrity. Maybe you married or dated or had some type of dating situation with somebody who had a connection to a celebrity. How about that one? And it also brought to mind, this is funny because I hadn't thought about this in years as I was starting to go into this story, that also a long-term relationship with somebody who dated a few Los Angeles Dodgers. didn't have good things to say about those guys from the 1980s. All right, let's get right to it because we're not going to go too deep into that. But just thought that was funny as a classic TV guy, Peter Brady. Funny stuff. Couldn't wait to tell my friends. All right, let's get to the morning headlines. And this is me scanning the headlines, searching for the best for you. On ESPN, we got nothing, folks. We cut a video the other day, and please check it out on Brett Yormark, commenting on the Big 12's relevance after splitting a record distribution of money, $470 million, or by other accounts, depending on how the money is counted, $510 million. But check out the video. This is days old, as is the Virginia decision to pay $9 million related to slain football players. Ex-quarterback Tyler Buckner of Notre Dame back with the Irish, but as a receiver. All these are days and days old. Let's get some fresh headlines. Now let's go to CBS Sports and let's see if they have anything fresh and new and important in the headlines. Oh, a lot of self-promotion here. Talking about the 2024 Big Ten football schedule on CBS. Notre Dame lands a quarterback in 2026. Who cares? He's probably going to flip 18 times and have NIL offers all over the place between now and then. And Dennis Dodd's article on Greg Sankey. Let's get to some real news. I don't care about Shiloh Sanders and why he filed for bankruptcy. Okay, now we get down to the good stuff. I like this. SEC again mulling 9-game league schedule as reported by Brandon Marcello. Many of you, including myself, want a uniform standard schedule for college football. That would mean a 9-game league schedule. The ACC needs to come into play as well. But most of us pick on the SEC because they claim to be the best. I still believe they are the best, but they only play 8 conference games and a lot of cakewalk games in between. So this is coming from the coaches' meetings in Destin. The SEC is again contemplating an expanded conference football schedule, increasing revenue. And then the SEC has already decided to run 8-game schedules for the next 2 seasons. Several programs originally against the prospect of increasing schedules, but they are looking at 9 games for 2026, sources told CBS Sports. The motivation for adding a 9th SEC game comes as major college athletics is set to institute a new revenue-sharing program. Always comes down to money. Expenses are estimated to approach $30 million annually. That is the result of the court case between the NCAA and its opponents, and as such, programs are scrambling to find new pockets of revenue. Value could fluctuate as ESPN owns broadcast rights of all non-conference home games as well that might be canceled in favor of an expanded league schedule. Would Arkansas's home game against Notre Dame in 2025 be less valuable compared to a 9th SEC game? So let's think about this, folks. Most of us want a uniform schedule in college football, and that would include the SEC expanding to a 9-game schedule. Also, there are 2 more teams in the league. Therefore, for each team in the SEC, they've got 15 other opponents, possible opponents, and they only play 8 of the 15, so you play barely 53%. 53% of your opponents and competitors for a conference championship. That illegitimizes the conference championship to a large degree. So that would be a good thing, going to 9 games and being on par with the Big 12 and with the Big 10 and the former Pac-12. We would have to get the ACC in line as well. However, the point brought up there would be, for an entertainment standpoint, do we lose key and meaningful and interesting non-conference games? They cite Notre Dame, Arkansas right there. Would Arkansas just say, well, we got to play an extra game now. We got to play Tennessee this year. We're dropping Notre Dame. We can make our schedule only so tough. And for the revenue portion of this, which is driving it, of course, we're not talking about fairness or wanting to get with the other leagues or doing it because we want to legitimize the conference championship a little bit more by actually playing the teams in the league. No, the driving force is, of course, money. And now with the demand of the players and the pay for play that's going to kick in 2025, at approximately $22 million per team, per school. They say here up to $30 million, probably with all the expenses included. No, the motivation is we got to make more money. We've got to have more attractive matchups and less Alabama, Middle Tennessee State, less Georgia and Chattanooga. Less of those games, more conference games. More money. Sankey said last year, I remember this, awfully close to making a decision. We need to land the plane is what he said. He doesn't want to keep circling around this topic, but he wants to make a decision. Among the factors the SEC is weighing is how the expanded college football playoff will treat leagues with 9 conference games, Big 10, Big 12, compared to those with 8, SEC, ACC. Several SEC programs have scheduled multiple non-conference games against Power 4 opponents to strengthen their playoff resumes. Among them, Alabama, which will play 2 Power Conference opponents each year for the next 10 seasons. You can look at that 2 ways. If you play in the SEC or the Big Ten and you go 10-2, you are going to be in the playoff. We've run the model not just through the playoff era, but before that, but certainly with the college football playoff rankings by the committee. They're more valid during the past 10 years. And if you go 10-2 in the SEC or the Big Ten, you are going to be in, especially with the expanded leagues and with the tougher schedules, with the newbies coming in, Oklahoma, Texas, and the 4 from the Pac-12 into the Big Ten. However, so you can look at it as we don't need to play anyone. If we go 6-2 in the conference and we sweep a bunch of cupcakes, our 8-game schedule is going to justify that we get in. Whether it justifies it based on strength of schedule or reputation of the league, we'll get in because history tells us that, and history is going to be much stronger on the side of the SEC and the Big Ten going forward. Or do you fear possibly going 9-3 or against a brutal schedule, going 8-4 and possibly getting the nod? So do you beef up the non-conference schedule? I would think not. I think the pros go toward the weakening of the schedule to impress the committee and have a strong enough schedule versus loading up your football team against difficult opponents, possibly losing those games and maybe losing those games big. And the rest of the SEC article is background that we've covered many, many times here at the Voice of College Football. Let's move on to the next headline. Big 12 schools weighing revenue sharing options. I expect this to be somewhat of a duplicate of the video we posted the other day about Brett Yormark. Please check it out. But not necessarily the revenue sharing options. Uncertainty was the word at the top of mind as Big 12 leaders gathered for spring business meetings as part of the proposed settlement, which is still pending judicial approval. Got to remember that. FBS institutions could fund a revenue sharing model, $22 million the first season. The number projects is more than 20% of many Power 4 athletic departments' budgets. We have 12 or 14 months here probably before we have to figure out what we're doing in that first year of allocation, Baylor president Linda Livingstone told CBS Sports. I think that will be the biggest question. In some ways, you're working on models without understanding the complete playing field yet. That's how you got to work on most projects. You got to go forward not knowing all the ramifications, all the implications, all the rules and regulations even that are going to be instituted, but you got to go with the 80% that you know. Again, much of that article covers what we produced in our video that we posted the other day. Please check it out. But at the heart of this, concerning the revenue sharing, obviously there are schools in each league that produce most of the TV revenue. We know who they are versus the teams that get by playing on the regional networks that if they dropped off the face of the earth from a TV media rights standpoint would not matter an iota. The Big 12 has less than that. There's a more balanced contribution to the league than there are in the other conferences because the league is so balanced and there are not elite draws out of the Big 12, but there are also less bottom feeders because the league, again, is more balanced. Now, we know that from a football standpoint, from a popularity standpoint, I think it's a little bit more dispersed. But at the same time, more balanced than the other leagues. Now, I've always felt as though generally is a general concept, not necessarily to the T, but the most fair way to look at this and the most probably beneficial one, healthy one, long-term to sustain the league and not run into issues like the ACC did with Clemson and Florida State. And I'm not saying that they ran into these issues because they didn't do this, but this is part of it. And something Florida State has pushed for here in recent years would be the revenue distribution, much like other entities in professional sports do it, Major League Baseball in particular to a lesser degree, but you take the pot and you say, okay, we are equal members, we are partners, we have been partners for some cases 120 years, so we take 50% of the revenue and we divide it evenly, regardless of how popular you are on television or not, regardless of your 2-10 season, your 11-1 season, your playoff run, whatever it is, you're an equal partner here. For this 50%, we split it equally. Then we take the other portion of this. Could be 50%, could be 60, could be 40, roughly half, and say this depends on performance. Now, am I talking strictly football? No, you could be a 10-2 football team and nobody watched you. Well, that doesn't help because we're talking about money generation. People get this confused all the time. We have this conversation all the time on our shows where people think if you work hard, you deserve money, even if you're not valuable in the marketplace. Sorry, it doesn't work like that. You got to be valuable in the marketplace. You can work 100 hours on YouTube, and if you don't make anything, nobody wants to watch you. Who cares? You could drop a video once a month, and if it's the greatest thing in the world and people love it, and it could be the stupidest thing in the world, but people watch it and you make a ton of money, you make a ton of money. Same thing here. Now, there is a direct correlation between winning and popularity. So that's not going to be too far off. But still, if you bring the eyeballs, then the TV revenue, that portion of it, from my viewpoint, should be divided unfairly, unevenly, let's put it that way, probably fairly but unevenly, and goes to the schools that brought in the revenue. I like this one. ACC odds, Florida State favored to repeat. All the odds that we've seen in the preseason concerning the ACC has Florida State, Miami, and Clemson pretty much neck and neck with the same odds and also the same over-under win projection at 9.5. This article, courtesy David Cobb. So we've got SMU, Cal, and Stanford moving into the ACC. West Coast block. The Mustangs on an island in the Lone Star State. SMU is also one of the league's most difficult teams to project. They went 11-3 last year, 9-0 in the American Conference as champions. Third-year coach Rhett Lashley leading his team into a new league with momentum. However, the uptick in competition has brought challenges to everyone we've talked about and everyone we've seen in recent years. Even TCU, Utah, they struggled early in power conference play. I don't know why the focus on SMU here, but a nice little tidbit on SMU before we go into the ACC odds with Florida State at a plus 270. What does that mean, Mark? For many of you who don't care about gambling, betting, and I would say you're in a good place, don't get interested in it. That means that if you lay down a $100 bet on Florida State to win the ACC, and they do in fact win the ACC, then you net a $270 gain. So last season, anyone who bet on Florida State, if they had the same odds last year, put down $100, you get $370 back, you net $270. Now, if that figure was a minus, which would be rare because that means that that particular school would be a favorite against the entire conference, and the odds-on favorite, that's where that term comes from, then that would have a minus sign, and we would have that explanation later. Clemson at plus 350, Miami at plus 430. So Florida State, in terms of the odds that were just released here, a pretty substantial favorite. Louisville, NC State, dark horses at plus 600. Then it falls off a cliff. So basically, Florida State's the favorite. Clemson and Miami in contention. Louisville and NC State with a shot on that tier by themselves. And then it goes into a team that a lot of people really like as a dark horse. They have a ton of returning production. Of course, they've got Kyron Drones at quarterback and Colin Schlee coming in from the West Coast to UCLA at quarterback. Virginia Tech at plus 1,400. And on down the line, look at North Carolina at plus 4,500. No Drake May. They lose a ton of weapons on offense. They did not have a good defense, but they had a ton of talent on defense that they lost primarily there as well. And so North Carolina used to be in that top 3 or 4 under Mac Brown. They drop all the way to plus 4,500 with Syracuse. And, of course, Max Johnson, the new quarterback with the heels, and the new quarterback at Syracuse, one Kyle McCord. Then it really goes to the depths with Cal, Georgia Tech, and Pitt. Of course, Georgia Tech ascended to a bowl win and a 7-6 record under Brent Key, but also consider that Georgia Tech was a decent decision by Mario Cristobal and not him losing his mind away from finishing at 5-7. and not having the opportunity to win that bowl game to go to 7-6. So Georgia Tech could have had the perception of a bad season at 5-7 very easily, but they turned it around to go to 7-6. Stanford at the bottom at plus 50,000. You hardly ever see that number, but Stanford buried under 16 teams, and that has become a bad football program. We do appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football, and once again, your dating brushes with celebrities or people that you dated or married to, whatever it is, a romantic situation, let's say, with celebs. Love to see these comments. How many of you have had brushes with celebs? I don't want to say greatness. It's not greatness. It is in some cases, but very few. Those interesting comments I would love to hear down in the comment section. More importantly, going forward, do not want to forget this. I want you to drive the show, drive the headlines that we present each and every week. So if you have a go-to newspaper for headlines, let us know. We're looking at ESPN, then we went to CBS Sports. We will certainly go to others. Just make sure it's a national outlet. Please like, subscribe, do all those good things right here at the Voice of College Football. Keep in mind, it's Monday, and therefore our schedule looks like this. Special edition Oklahoma Sooners live at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. I'm going to have to get to it. Parker Thune from Rivals OU Insider will be with us. 7 p.m. Eastern Time, Texas Live with Matthew Miller over on the Texas channel. Please check it out. 7 p.m. Eastern Time, West Virginia channel. You got some trivia with Joey Foster. 10 p.m. Eastern Time, USC Live. That's Trojan Conquest with myself, Matt Zemek, and Tim Prangley. Let's make it a big day of college football right here at the Voice of College Football. Again, like and subscribe. We'll see you soon.